Alrighty, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Countless Vlogcast. I'm your host, Justin Rich. In a moment, I'll bring my guest on, Craig A. Price, science fiction and fantasy author. We'll talk a bit about his book, a little about his journey as author, and upcoming projects. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Alrighty, good evening. How are you, Craig?
I'm doing well, doing well.
So tell us a little about yourself. Give a little introduction about yourself.
Yeah, so my name is Craig A. Price. I write epic fantasy and so dabbling into science fiction right now. I have always wanted to be an author ever since first grade in grade school. Actually, I remember my teacher would make these little books out of construction paper and tell us to write our stories and draw pictures and make books. So I've known ever since the first grade that I wanted to be an author. Um, I've actually my started loving sci-fi before I got into fantasy, but I love both genres a lot. I got a lot of success on Wattpad early in my career before I started publishing myself and finding a couple of small publishers. I'm originally from the Pacific Northwest, but I've been living in Alabama for the past 10 years now um, with my family down here.
Great. So from first grade to adulthood, what got you into like professionalism? Though, when did you realize you could be a professional author and publish?
Yeah, I've always wrote stories. I remember writing a bunch of heck when I was a kid. I remember writing a bunch of Command and Conquer stories and everything. And I've always kind of wanted to write. When I was in middle school, I tried to write like a little mystery book. I was big into Hardy Boys and everything, and then I started getting the Lord of the Rings, and I really didn't. Always, always been a passion of mine. But my life kind of got started early. I had to work. I had to get out of high school and actually work to help support my family and everything. And it wasn't until I started writing on a website called Wattpad that the administrators of that website liked me so much that they actually featured my novel that I was working on and asked me to finish it so they could feature it. And I started getting uh, that book when I was on Wattpad was my first book, The Crimson Claymore, and it had over 2.5 million reads on Wattpad and like 18,000 votes and over 1,200 reviews on it. And all of those people commenting and telling me what they loved about the story and encouraging me and then giving me critiques of stuff I could fix. It was really at that point that I started thinking, well, hey, I've always loved writing, but maybe I can actually do something with writing. So I started looking into getting published and seeking out publishers and everything like that. And then that's a really hard road with lots of rejections that I started finding smaller publishers and learning about independent publishing and decided I'm going to make this happen for myself, if anything.
Great. So, what inspired that first story on Wattpad? What was that? What was that process like for you when you first started writing that?
Um, I always wanted to get a novel out or at least finished. So I was struggling with actually getting a full novel together. So I've always kind of been in the background of an event called NaNoWriMo, which if you're not aware, it stands for a National Novel Writing Month. And the website is nanowrimo.org. And you can meet with local authors. And you have these little things called write-ins where you just sit and you all try and write. And the goal of this is to get 50,000 words in a month. And so I've had this idea for this fantasy series that I kind of started when I was a kid. There's like 12 chapters outlined. I wrote 4 chapters of it when I was in middle school and just kind of scrapped it. Well, I forced myself to try and get that whole book out in a month. And so I had most of it outlined and I just zipped out as much as I could. And it was 50,000 words for epic fantasy, which is really short. And then I was like 2 or 3 chapters shy until Wattpad reached out to me and wanted to feature my book and asked me if I could write the last few chapters. Finishing that first book, it felt great. It still, at that time, I needed a lot of work. I probably spent 7 to 10 years working on that book. It went from 50,000 words long to 130,000 words long down to like 120,000 words. I mean, I spent a lot of time on that first book. But after getting that first project out, it felt so great. And then my writing process, I've had to learn a lot of stuff. I've learned about my revision process and everything, and now I'm able to get books out a lot quicker than 7 years. Thankfully.
Yeah, awesome. So, talk a little about the series into Dragonia. What inspired that from the first book to the recent book you published?
Um, yeah, Dragonia. I've always loved dragons. I love watching them on TV. One of my favorite movies growing up as a kid was Dragonheart, with Sean Connery and Dennis Quaid. It's a great movie, and I've always loved dragons. And then I watch on TV how you'll see they'll call them dragons, but there'll be a lot of them that are actually more like wyverns in folklore for dragons, which means they only have 2 legs and then straight to wings, and they wouldn't be as large as an actual dragon would be. And I kind of had the idea of, well, what could I do with dragons, but actually include different types of dragons so people can kind of understand that there's dragons, there's wyverns out there, there's drakes, which are your wingless dragons. So I actually wanted to play with the concept of different types of dragons, and then in a war, who would win? An army full of dragon riders or an army full of wyvern riders, and what would make the difference in that battle? The dragons are going to be a lot bigger, more massive, stronger, but the wyverns are going to have more aerodynamics, maneuverability, and there's lots of fun things to play with. So I actually really wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into dragons and magic and different types of elements for dragons as well, from fire and ice and lightning. And it was something I've been wanting to kind of play with for a while, and I've had a lot of fun with this Dragonia series.
Sounds awesome. So when you're writing different genres, do you do it at the same time? Do you mix genres, write at the same time, or do you do like a separate write for because then you have Ghost Probe out too. So when you're writing each story too, do you find it difficult to write different genres at the same time, or what's that process like for you?
It's been a little back and forth. On one hand, when you're deep into one genre and you kind of get stuck when you're writing a little bit, you kind of think, I just need to take a step back, and then I'll jump to a different genre and start writing it, and then it kind of flows for a little bit, and then I might get stuck there. I can jump back. So at that kind of makes it nice to be able to go back and forth a little bit. But it can be challenging at times. But my sci-fi is similar to a space opera or Star Wars. So I actually have like a space mage in there. So I do have a little bit of a fantasy element. It's not quite all hard sci-fi, but I do try and have some science in it, because I do find a lot of that science fascinating, different things I can do with the world and space and travel and everything.
Okay. So what inspires you to start become a self-published author versus publishing, taking the traditional route too? What decided you to go self-publishing route?
I tried to go the traditional route before I really understood what independent publishing and self-publishing was, and I have hundreds of rejections from agents and publishers, and it just kind of it knocked me down a couple pegs, because I was starting to feel like I could actually do this. After I got into Wattpad and had a huge reader base already of people who were commenting on every single chapter I wrote and loved everything I put out, and trying to even include that kind of information as query letters. And still, out of over 200 queries, I've only had 2 requests for partial manuscripts, and both of those partial requests were ultimately turned down. So I tried it for a while, and then I started learning about independent publishing. I found a lot of podcasts out there, books about it, and I just started absorbing everything I could. And then I started realizing that unless I have a really big name, even if I were to sign with a publisher, I'd be doing all the work anyway, all the marketing and everything else. So I figured, if I can just figure out how to do it myself, maybe later on I can land a bigger publisher once I kind of made a name for myself. But even if I would do that, I'm still going to probably be a hybrid author to where I would do both.
So talk about that a little bit deeper, publishing, and then what about branding yourself and promoting yourself too? Talk about that a little bit, marketing, how that works for you personally.
Yeah, marketing is definitely tough. It's hard to get yourself out there, finding interviews to talk about your stuff, getting with other authors and who are in your genre, who you can read some of their books. They can read some of yours, and kind of recommend each other's books to your fans. Provided that you actually like their stuff. But it's a lot of work, no matter which way you go. And then getting into advertising. I'm dipping my toes into some Facebook advertising right now, a little bit of Amazon advertising. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of studying. It's like going back to school. I just got notebooks full of notes and all kind of stuff of stuff to try, and target. You got to do a lot of targeting on Amazon and Facebook to find, what kind of readers would like my stuff. So it's a lot of work as far as marketing goes. So I get myself out there trying to find reviewers. Wattpad was great, but Wattpad is more for the younger audience. So a lot of the people who were my fans on Wattpad aren't on there anymore, and I can't really reach them because they moved on from from teenagers reading on free books on Wattpad to actually buying books on Amazon, and I've lost them in the mix. So there's a lot of stuff that goes in advertising, and sometimes you could miss opportunities like I did, getting those fans to roll over before they left that platform.
Great. So who were some of the authors you studied their craft in terms of writing, in terms of marketing, that you really really helped you out in your process?
As far as craft goes, Brandon Sanderson is a fantastic epic fantasy author. He finished the Wheel of Time series. He has his own really grand epic fantasy series and several other fantasy series out there. He has this podcast called Writing Excuses, and he does it with Mary Robinette Cowell and Dan Wells and Howard Taylor. And their podcast is about 15 minutes long, and they pick a random writing topic every week, and it's been going on for I think 10 years now. So they have a writing topic every week, 52 weeks a year for the past 7 to 10 years. And that's been the most help as far as my writing process. I've learned everything from different ways to outline my books to plotting to outlining to character development to characterization, dialogue. There's just so much there as far as craft goes. As far as learning more about the business side of publishing, I've learned a lot in 20 Books to 50K Facebook group. There's a lot of information there. Science was a self-publishing formula podcast and group. They have a lot of help over there as well. There's lots of great podcasts out there. Used to be one of my favorites was Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, but that has changed to Six Figure Authors Podcast. So I just try and learn as much as I can from going to all those different places and learning as much as I can about the industry.
So with this time in quarantine and the pandemic, how has it affected your creativity? Like the beginning, how was your creativity affected to now too? And what are some of your present goals?
I had actually thought that quarantine would help me get more done because my day job, I work at a shipyard where I'm a planner. I get a lot of blueprints from engineers and designers, and I have to translate that to give it to the supervisors and stuff. And they actually told me in March, hey, you can work from home. You can do remote login. And so I thought, oh, great, I'll be at home. I'll be able to maybe get a little bit of writing done. Maybe have a little notebook next to me while I'm working and write a couple ideas, and I'll get pumped up and ready to go. When I get off work, I'll be able to get some stuff down. And it really wasn't like that. It kind of kicked me on the butt creativity-wise. And I'm just now kind of climbing back out of it. So I thought I would have more done, but actually being home with my family, which has been great, being able to eat breakfast and lunch with them. But I used to take my break times while at work, actually cranking down some words and stuff. And now I'm spending that with family, which is great, but it took me back to a little bit further than I wanted to be. So I'm working on bouncing back out of that, and my creativity is coming back. But it's definitely been challenging during this whole quarantine, more than I thought it would be.
Okay, great. So who was your audience base? You said you had a younger audience too. How has it changed over time, since a lot of your audience is all Wattpad now? And who do you want your audience to be in general and going forward?
Yeah, my first fantasy series is more of an adult fantasy series, teenagers and on up. There's a bit of violence in there, a bit of screen turns to black, but you kind of know kind of stuff. And so I won't let my youngest read that yet. So that series actually tell people that if you like R.A. Salvatore's action and Terry Goodkind's humor. Terry Goodkind has this funny wizard named Zedekiah Zul-Zarander, who's very comedic. I have a wizard similar to that, which I didn't know at the time when I was writing my book, but they are both kind of quirky wizards. So that series more lends to the adult side. Since then, I've actually tried to write something that my 12-year-old son could read. That I, having a problem just handing over to him. I actually started that when he was 10. So that's been my Dragonia series. So that's anywhere from middle school age, late elementary age, and on up, and anybody who loves dragons. My stuff is very sword and sorcery. My sci-fi is very comedic with a lot of puns in it, which also lends itself to a younger audience on up. I try to keep my stuff lighthearted, funny, and always have a underdog main character that tries to get themselves better.
Great. So when you're writing, do you write for yourself first? Do you write for the audience? And then part two of that question, would you say your audience gets what you're writing from like the message you want to convey?
Yeah. My very first book, Crimson Claim, and that whole series, I really did write that for myself, especially that first book. I didn't have an audience in mind. I had an idea that I wanted to do, and I wrote it. And then it ended up being really well received on Wattpad, and that's when I kind of just decided to follow through with it. After that series, I did start writing more with an audience in mind. And like my Dragonia series, I love dragons, and I've always wanted to write dragons. There's a dragon or two in my first series, but it's not really a prominent character. However, I had an audience in mind when I wrote this Dragonia series because I wanted to actually show people the difference between the different types of dragons. But it was a passion of mine as well. But I did make sure I had that audience in mind to kind of not just the audience for dragons, but also a younger audience in mind that would be able to pick up my books. It wouldn't be too complicated to comprehend, but still plenty of plot and characterization in there to be fulfilling to an adult audience as well.
Great. So as an experienced author, could you give advice out there to young authors out there and those struggling in this time?
Don't give up. The hardest part is writing that first book. Once you have completed a book, everything gets a lot easier. The first book you can spend years working on, writing, outlining. Don't get trapped in an outline. Outline to an extent if you're an outliner, but then just get some words out. Finishing that first book is the best thing you can do. They say that you have to write 1 million words before your words start getting good. And it's true to an extent, I wrote all my life. So, my first book was not my first 50,000 words by any means, but I've definitely seen improvement from my first book to my most current book as far as how my writing goes. So just keep writing, finish a book. You won't believe the amount of accomplishment you feel just by finishing a project. And then just, study your craft in the best way that you can. If you like reading books on craft, or if you want to listen to a short podcast like Writing Excuses or other ones, just keep at it and don't give up. It is very fulfilling to, once you start having fans come to you and say, hey, I loved your work. It's a great feeling.
Great. So, what's your next project without giving too much away? Give us a little snippet of that. And what genre you want to write on besides science fiction and epic fantasy? Are you want to stick it to that genre?
I think I'm going to stick to science fiction fantasy for the time being. I've always been intrigued with mystery. I like, the Hardy Boys and Three Investigators and stuff growing up. I've thought about it a couple of times, but I'm really sticking with fantasy. I'm diving into sci-fi, and I'm liking it. My sci-fi is comedic, kind of like the Orville meets Star Trek or Star Wars, where it's got some comedy in it. So my next big project is my sci-fi series. I actually have book 1 ready. It's called Ghost Probe.
Cool.
And the ebook is not officially out yet. It's about to be soon. I'm trying to get a couple of these ready to go together, so that the paperback's out, but the ebook's not quite there. Book 2, I have 4 chapters left to write. I'm hoping to finish that up in the next week or so, to send to my editor, and then I'm going to start getting my release dates for books 1, 2, and 3. Book 2 is Ghost Surveillance. Book 3 is Ghost Dragon. They're going to crash land on a planet full of dragons. So that's my my project right now is finishing Ghost Surveillance and then getting on to Ghost Dragon and really trying to get that knocked out. Next year I have a project involving a lot of elves, including a new elf that I created called Stone Elves. So I'm looking forward to that series as well, but I'm trying to finish up a couple projects I got. I also have 2 more Dragonias I need to write. I have 3 published. I have 5 planned for the series. So when I finish this Ghost Dragon book, I'm going to be dropping right into the Dragonia, so I can be able to finish that series. And I'm thinking about actually going back into the Dragonia world later. But
great, dope covers too. Dope covers and dope stories too. So last thing, I like to end these with like a positive message from you to the audience out there. Anything you'd like to share with the world out there, to your fans, audience?
Yeah, I appreciate everyone who reads my stuff, and I love hearing from my readers. I also have audiobooks available if anybody likes listening to books. I have them on Audible. And as far as message out to the world, with all these crazy times going on right now between COVID and everything else on the news, man, just love each other. Everybody, we need to all come together as a world, as a community, and quit being one side or the other. And we all just need to show love to every single person out there. That really needs to bring our world together. And I hope to kind of show some of that love through the books that I write, that there's always a way to friendship, to bond, to have people of opposites to be able to come together and find friendship. And we really need to get back to that as a society as well.
Great. So just drop your tags real quick, social media, websites, and any links you want to drop.
Yes, you can visit me at www.craigaprice.com. I have all my novels on there, separated by series, from my Crimson Claymore books to my co-author Dragon's Call books with Angelique Anderson, my Dragonia books, and then I have audio information on there too, where you can go to find all my audiobooks. You can look me up on Audible, Facebook /Craig A. Price Jr. I'm on Twitter. I sometimes get on there, but I got it set, so if you ping me on there, I'll be able to see it. Then you can always reach out to me through my website. I have a contact form. My email is available there. I have some free books to people who join my newsletter, short stories from my Dragonia world and other stuff. But yeah, I'm out there on the web, Craig A. Price.
Great. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story and about Dragonia and the other story of science fiction. Really appreciate it.
All right, it was great talking to you.
All right, guys. This has been the Countless Vlogcast with my guest, author Craig A. Price. Make sure you guys follow him on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, follow his website, reach out to him. Also, you can watch this again on YouTube, Countless Vlogcast. Thank you guys for watching. I'm out.